All right, my name is Margaret Horvath, and I will be your technical assistant today. This session is being recorded and will be available on the TDSB website at www.tdsb.on.ca. To ensure a smooth session for all attendees, we have enabled only the Q&A function. You have been muted and you are able to share your screen. You are unable to share your screen, sorry about that. Everything in Zoom is customizable based on your individual settings. So your display may not be exactly as I described it. However, what should be similar is the black toolbar at the bottom of your screen. It should appear when you move your cursor. If you want to open the Q&A, simply click on the Q&A icon. Everyone will have access to the Q&A, so please ask your questions there. If you are calling into the session, please use *9, the raise hand function, and the moderator will try to get to your question. Next step is audio and microphone. The audio quality of this session is based on your individual bandwidth. If you're worried about slow internet connection, you can call in by using the dial-in information included in the invite. The invite is also located at www.tdsb.on.ca under the heading Latest News. If for some reason your speaker's bandwidth becomes unstable and things become choppy, please bear with us. We'll hear it too, and we will work as quickly as possible to resolve the issue. You may exit or change full screen speaker or gallery view by clicking the top right button or view options drop-down menu. Lastly, there will be a quick survey for you to complete before you leave the webinar. I've put it into the chat. Now, to get things started, I'm going to hand it over to Cecile Farnham, your Ward 9 alternate for the Parent Involvement Advisory Committee, or PIAC. Over to you, Cecile.
Hello and good evening. Again, I'm Cecile Farnham, a parent of children at the TDSB in Ward 9 and a member of PIAC. For those who don't know, PIAC advises the board on parent engagement and provides advice and information about the education system to parents and school councils. I'm pleased to welcome you all to tonight's webinar, Mental Health, Wellbeing, and Routines in the Early Years, which is the first in the TDSB's conversation series. As is customary, I'd like to read the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and the Inuit peoples. I'll now turn it over to Colleen Russell-Rollins, Associate Director of Equity, Wellbeing, and School Improvement at the TDSB.
Thank you very much, Cecile. Good evening, everyone. We are very pleased that you were able to join us this evening for our first of 3 conversations this week. This evening's panel will discuss mental health and well-being and routines in the early years. Our thought exchange survey to families really highlighted the importance of mental health and well-being and creating positive family routines as we transition between different learning environments. Please note that on June 23rd, we will be hosting the second session on mental health and well-being in adolescents and teens. And on June 25th, the subject will be Talking Race with Families. So thank you for joining us, and we hope that you and your family will benefit from the insights of our amazing panel this evening. Let me introduce Rachel Chernos-Lynn, trustee for Ward 11 and a member of PIAC, a trustee member of PIAC. Thank you and welcome, Rachel.
Thank you, Associate Director Russell-Rollins. Good evening. As the Associate Director mentioned, I'm the trustee for Ward 11, Don Valley West, and I'm also the trustee representative for the Parent Involvement Advisory Committee here at the TDSB. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce the first of 3 webinars that we will be hosting this week. All of the topics of this week's webinars have been chosen based on direct feedback from parents and guardians at the TDSB, and tonight's topic, mental health, well-being, and routines in the early years, is certainly one that many parents have been talking about. Over the last couple of months, the COVID-19 pandemic and physical distancing requirements have changed our children's lives dramatically. So many parents have raised concerns about the impact of all these changes on their children's mental health and well-being. With regular routines no longer set by the morning school bell, parents have been challenged with figuring out how to establish routines and how to set their children up for success in this new environment. As a school board, it is important that we listen to our communities. It helps us make informed decisions, and it helps us to provide support and guidance where needed. And so tonight we look forward to an engaging evening where we hope to address the parent concerns related to mental health, well-being, and routines. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce this evening's moderator, Heather Johnson, a social worker and mental health lead here at the TDSB. Heather is also part of a provincial team at the Ministry of Education called School Mental Health Assist, and is also involved in developing, implementing, and supporting the TDSB's Children and Youth Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy. Amidst all of these projects, Heather somehow manages to always find time to support parents through events such as ward forums and parent council meetings. I was lucky enough to have her come speak at one of mine last fall, where her passion for creating welcoming, safe, and inclusive schools which foster the well-being of all students was made abundantly clear. We are so fortunate to have her here this evening to moderate what will be, without doubt, an informative and helpful evening from a terrific panel of experts. Over to you, Heather.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I really appreciate that. It's really kind of exciting for us to be here tonight doing something very different than what we've done before. I'm excited to be part of this conversation about mental health and well-being and the importance of structure, consistency, and routines in the early years and beyond. As you were saying, over the past few months, COVID has created many challenges for us, particularly as parents juggle working and family obligations while trying to navigate remote learning for their children. There's not anything that anyone could have really prepared us for. It's affected how we are feeling and doing in our well-being. I actually have been calling it the COVID coaster, as it brings many emotional highs and lows. Sometimes we don't realize the impact of the ongoing stress that we are all experiencing because it shows itself differently in everyone. We are hoping that this evening you'll leave with a nugget or an idea that makes you think and reflect on something a little differently or invites you to try something new. And we've had lots of opportunity in the last few months to try something new, but hopefully we can, again tonight, look for something that we can use as we move ahead. Throughout the evening, as Margaret said, you can post your questions in the question box. You'll see on the screen, and we'll have an opportunity at the end of the meeting to address as many questions as possible. We hope that you enjoy the evening. So tonight we're offering you 3 very experienced speakers who bring with them a wealth of knowledge and life experiences. They will share with us some of their ideas, which will hopefully be helpful to you as parents as you figure out how to move forward. During the evening, we will have a short break between the second and the third speaker. So between Afros and Karen, it'll give us a chance to move around, maybe grab a beverage of your choice. As your children probably remind you, it's hard sitting still and focusing for a long time. And I think as adults, we need to recognize that. So it's important that we give ourselves a break. So I'm very pleased tonight that I would like to first welcome Ann Douglas, who is the author of a number of parenting books and has deep experiential knowledge from a role as a mother of 4. Ann is going to start us off by having us think about how we might prepare for a summer like we have never experienced before. Thanks, Ann, and welcome. We have to get Ann off of mute, maybe.
Anne, you're muted. You need to turn your
There
microphone
we go.
on.
Sorry about that. I don't usually mute myself because I do forget to unmute myself, but there we go. I think I'm now audible, which is great. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate everybody who managed to get in front of this screen tonight, because I know it isn't easy, and it just shows how committed you are to trying to figure out strategies for navigating what Heather just described as truly a one-of-a-kind summer. We've never had a summer like this before, and So a lot of the supports that we could rely on in normal times simply aren't available. So I wanted to start out very briefly by acknowledging how deeply challenging the past few months have been for people. Often I'll be talking to a parent, and I've hosted a number of town halls in recent months, and people feel like it's just them, or, you know, that they're doing it wrong. It's not that you're doing it wrong. It's that the challenge is extraordinary. So, I mean, just looking at the layers of it, the fact that so many people had to change their working lives overnight, the fact that they had to do that in the context of also, supporting remote learning and not having access to childcare. All of these different layers of expectations that have been placed on the shoulders of parents have been quite crushing for a lot of people. So if you are sitting back, I hope you're sitting back in the most comfortable chair you have in your home and taking a deep breath and enjoying a cup of tea. I hope you know it's not just you, it's so many parents right now. And I think that if there's one little two-word phrase I could use to describe the nature of the challenge of this moment, and maybe a concept that will help you understand why you have been feeling so overloaded and overwhelmed, it's called role conflict. And role conflict happens when one of your roles in life collides with another one of your roles in life. And right now it feels like that is happening 24/7 perpetually. So it's not surprising in the least that people are feeling overwhelmed and overloaded. And also, there's a lot of global research on parental happiness and stress that speaks to the role of role conflict in that. And when parents feel like they don't have that separation of roles, or that they're constantly letting somebody down in their life, it really is a source of great parental stress and unhappiness. But we're not here to just talk about why this is so hard, because that would be discouraging. I think a lot of people already know it's really hard. I want to pivot to solutions, and I'm actually going to present 4 different buckets of solutions. We're going to talk first of all about calming yourself. Then as the presentation goes on a little later on, I'm going to talk about calming your child. Then I'm going to talk about parenting in a way that you can feel good about, both in this moment and for many years and decades to come. And then I'm going to pivot and keep it real, because the last thing I want is anybody who tuned in tonight to hang up later on feeling even more guilty than they did when they logged on. That is not the purpose of this presentation at all. So let's dive into strategies during this brief time that I have with you tonight. And of course, I'll be helping to answer questions later on. So if you think of something, type it into the Q&A box right away so you don't lose that question or thought. Strategies for calming yourself. I think we need to remind ourselves that calm is our parenting superpower. When we're able to get to that state of calm, we're able to do our best thinking. We're able to come up with much more creative solutions than might normally pop into our head. And we're also able to parent in a more conscious and deliberate way. So it really improves the quality of our thinking and our parenting. When we get to that place of calm, we're also able to dial back some of the cognitive load. I was fascinated to learn a couple of years ago that when you're feeling really, really anxious, your brain is actually multitasking. It's sort of switching channels constantly from whatever it is you're trying to focus on to feeling anxious about something else. And you can see, repeat that jump how many thousands of times a day, and you can see the cognitive load that triggers. I also want to emphasize the fact that we have the opportunity as the grown-ups to set the emotional tone in our families, because we've had decades of our life to learn a lot of these self-regulation strategies, how to manage our thoughts, feelings, and actions in ways that work for us and not against us. And sometimes I know you look at your little one and you think they're so grown up, or you look at your teenager and they're actually taller than you, and we expect them sometimes to act like mini adults, and they're not yet. So this is why we have such a central role to play in the calming. Now, I know there's at least one other person like me who is not naturally wired to be calm. So I want to tell you my little secret escape hatch I give myself. I tell myself, I might not be able to get to a state of calm, but maybe I can endeavor to be a little calmer a little more often, because there's never going to be a day in my life when I wake up and I'm naturally calm and I stay in that place. Just not going to happen. So I'm trying to make this more realistic for me and maybe for you as well. And also, in terms of calming ourselves, we need to accept the fact that things are going to be uncertain for a while. there are not any clear answers to the things that we want answers to, because public health authorities and other policymakers are figuring this out in real time. So we just don't know. I love having a routine and a schedule and a roadmap, and a lot of those things just aren't available to us right now. It's very improvisational. We also have to accept all our emotions as opposed to trying to run from our emotions. And I know that's something that at least one of the other speakers will be talking about later on, about a lot of, emotional resilience and so on. I would encourage you, in terms of calming yourself, to take stock of all the coping skills and strategies you've figured out along the way. You've no doubt had curveballs and life challenges. Think about what you can take from those earlier experiences to apply to the situation that is right now. And instead of feeling like you're focusing on all the things that are not within your control right now, maybe do a pivot and try to focus on all the things that still are within your control. For example, how you choose to focus your attention. And we can focus our attention in ways that make our lives better and happier, or in ways that just magnify the challenge of the moment. So that's a little bit about calming yourself. Now let's talk about calming your child. And what I'm talking about here, of course, is the magic of co-regulation. And co-regulation just basically means leaning on another person so that you can have help regulating your emotions. Now, obviously, this is something we do with babies from a very young age. That's why we hold them in our arms and we sway back and forth gently, and we say soothing things to them. It's because we want them to experience that state of calm so that over time they can learn how to get to that place of calm on their own. So that is a powerful tool in your kit, but of course it requires you to get to that place of calm or calmer in order to be able to provide that to your child. It can also be really helpful to help children to understand that it's a good idea to reach out to other people for support, that as humans, we are wired for connection, and that leaning on other people is an amazing strategy for sharing the load in a really emotionally challenging time. We can also encourage our kids to talk about whatever it is they're thinking and feeling, and look for opportunities to validate those feelings. Our kids really need to know that there's no such thing as a bad feeling or anything that they should feel guilty about. So if you have a child who's feeling deeply disappointed and grumpy because their birthday party plans didn't go the way they would have liked, that child might also be feeling guilty if everybody's worried about a relative's health. And they might think like, how can I be so selfish to be worrying about my birthday party, when really you can be feeling sad about the loss of your birthday party and worried about your grandparents' health at the same time. You don't have to choose sort of one or the other. We can also remind ourselves not to be triggered by what can sometimes feel like a child's super annoying behavior. It's not that they're trying to be annoying. What is happening is they're exhibiting stress behavior. So the way to manage that in yourself so you don't get super frustrated is just to say to yourself, what is my child trying to tell me with their behavior, and how can I meet the underlying need? Because that cuts through the chase of all those feelings of frustration that you might very well be feeling. I also just wanted to quickly touch upon routines. I know that's a common thread that is going to come through the entire presentation tonight, but I think it's really important to remind ourselves that we human beings love our ruts and our routines. And so I would encourage you to look for ways to maybe not have it feel like a rigid timetable or schedule that's too structured, but just to think about having a reassuring rhythm to the day so that your kids know that, meal times are roughly in this time frame, and we go to bed and we wake up in these rough time frames. It just gives you kind of that nice reassuring rhythm to the day. Let's talk briefly about parenting in a way you can feel good about, both today and for many years to come. I find it really helpful when I'm dealing with a challenging situation with one of my 4 kids to say to myself, what are my long-term big picture goals here? What are my hopes and dreams for myself, my child, and my family over the longer term? That's why we have the long view on this slide. You're looking ahead to the future and thinking, if I want to be really connected to my child, a year or a decade from now, let's work backwards from that point and think about the kind of things that will build upon the bond between you and your child. Thinking about that can help you to make more conscious and deliberate parenting choices as opposed to parenting on autopilot. And also, I think we want to ask ourselves, what kind of memories do we want our children to take with them from this moment? Because have no doubt, this will be a formative experience in the life of your child and of your family. So 20 years from now, when you're getting together at a family reunion, what do you want them to share when they talk about what it was like to live through this time? Maybe there'll be moments of frustration because, hey, every family has had moments of frustration. But maybe there will also be hilarious stories of really fun and joyous moments you shared together. Maybe you're one of those TikTok families that made amazing dance videos. If so, I am in your awe. You can also learn a little bit about child development so that you can parent in a way that is developmentally appropriate for your child. Nothing is more frustrating for you as the parent or for your child if you are holding them to like the ruler of what it's like to be a 5-year-old when they're still a 3.5-year-old, or likewise, you're expecting that teenager to act like an adult. That's simply not developmentally possible when they're still learning things along the way. We can remind ourselves that good parenting basically amounts to 3 simple yet powerful things: giving children a message of unconditional love and approval, letting them know that there's nothing they could do that would ever jeopardize your love for them, that they are worthy of your love just by virtue of being themselves. Second point is warm, sensitive, and responsive parenting, where you're really tuned into the needs of that child in that moment. Now, before you lay a guilt trip on yourself, no parent on the planet can do this 24 hours a day, because if we were always that tuned into our kids, nobody would ever eat dinner. Nobody would ever do laundry. Our lives would be completely absorbed by parenting and it would be exhausting. So in perspective with that point. And finally, support for their emerging abilities. Knowing what your child is capable of and gently nudging them along the path to greater autonomy, but not expecting giant leaps and bounds, and recognizing there will also be some back steps. Finally, in this section, I just want to really emphasize the importance of celebrating and recognizing your many strengths as a parent. So often we pivot to seeing all the things we're doing wrong. I would encourage you to think about, what would a friend say about you if they were bragging about what a great parent you are to me? What words would they use to describe you? Then really let those words sit with you and consider how they might be a resource to you during this time. So finally, I'm going to pivot to the last bucket of strategies, which is all about thinking progress, not perfection. I think it's so important now more than ever to give yourself permission to be a gloriously imperfect parent and your child permission to be a gloriously imperfect kid. You're going to make mistakes, both of you. You're going to say and do things you regret, and this is an amazing opportunity to teach your child about the art of relationship repair, recognizing when a relationship has gotten off track and having strategies for bringing things back on track, because parents don't have to be perfect and neither do kids. It's okay to apologize to your kids when you've made a mistake. And we can model that behavior for our kids. It's such an important life lesson. A couple of other quick tips before I pass the baton on to the next presenter. I want you to minimize the expectation gap, to recognize that maybe in normal times, your expectations for yourself could be this high, but these aren't normal times. So bring them down to reflect the fact that the resources available to you have also really significantly decreased. Practice self-compassion, which basically just means treating yourself with at least as much kindness as you would extend to another person who's struggling. The words that have helped me so often in my own life are, I'm doing the best that I can in a really difficult situation. Let those words really sink in. And finally, look for ways to safeguard the precious resource that is you. Think about what's realistic and possible for you right now when it comes to self-care, and look for opportunities perhaps to build on that over time. So one more slide, I think just the it takes a village slide. I want you to recognize that you don't have to handle this on your own. We were never meant to parent on our own, and if it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to support that child's parent. We need support, and we need it at every stage of parenting, and we also have to recognize how much the village stands to gain by offering that support to parents and kids. We have the opportunity as the community to raise up the happiest and healthiest generation of kids ever. So here's a call to just simply be the village for one another. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. Can you hear me? Yeah, great. So thank you so much. There were some really lovely things that ran through my mind as you spoke, and I really loved the comment to remind us all that we're doing the best I can at this time. And I think it's such an important message as a parent to think about that. We're dealing in times that we never ever imagined we would be. So hopefully we can keep some of those things in mind as we move on, and the importance of the love, the unconditional, warm, sensitive responsiveness that we give to our children. And I love the third one, support for the emerging abilities. I've seen as we've progressed through COVID that there's lots of opportunities for those small silver linings, that maybe there was an opportunity for independence with your child in a way you wouldn't have experienced before. So thanks, Karen. And we're going to move on, and I'm going to welcome Afros Anjum, who is our next speaker. And Afros is a psychologist with the TDSB, and she has studied and worked in the area of resilience for about the last 15 years. And she's going to offer some ideas about how we can support our children's resilience and our own resilience at a time when we're really being tested. Our resilience is really being tested by the pandemic and other global crises such as the anti-Black racism. So welcome, Afros, and we're excited to hear what you have to tell us about resilience.
Thank you, Heather, for an amazing introduction, and thank you, Anne, for the wonderful ideas that you shared with us. During this presentation, I'm going to remember to stay kind to myself. That is one strategy that we all, I think, need to work on. So in this presentation, in this brief talk, I'm just going to focus briefly on resilient parenting. I'm going to invite you to do one or two activities along with reflections, and you can continue to work on those activities later on. And then I will finish this talk with a few reminders. And of course, I will be available to answer your questions at the end of the evening. Okay, next. So if I might request you to sit in a relaxed posture, take a few deep breaths, and think of something that you are grateful for that happened today or yesterday. So I call gratitude a healing balm. It's that gift that has this power to make us calm in the moment when we might be feeling stressed. And we all have amazing things to be grateful for all the time. Something I'm grateful for is yesterday I had an opportunity to have a lovely Father's Day and revisit some of the videos that I had made with my father, as he's no longer with us. So I'm really thankful that at least I have those rich memories. Next. So when I think of resilient parenting, this image of the bird actually strikes my mind. This is an eagle bird, and the eagle bird is strongly known for its strong parental instinct and its ability to protect its young ones. Yet, This bird trains its children when it feels it's ready. So when all the other birds are in their nest when the storm comes, this bird trains its children how to fly in the face of the storm. So in a nutshell, to me, resilient parenting is really about loving our children deeply in a way that we actually prepare them how to manage the storms and the challenges that the life is just inevitably going to bring to them. Next. One of the phenomena that we all human beings actually really struggle with, even under normal circumstances, like a year ago when we didn't have pandemic, is negativity bias, which is our ability to pay more attention and more focus and time to negative information and negative feedback. And that really is a symptom of our survival instinct, actually. So given the context of pandemic, you can multiply that negativity bias actually by 5. So no wonder we are seeing an increase in mental health challenges, we are seeing an increase in anxiety, and that's taking a toll on our relationships actually, and sometimes with people with whom we spend a lot of time, because we are all forced to pressurized to live at home and share this space with family members. So research has shown that if you want to manage the effect of negativity bias, so say for instance, if you've made one negative comment, we need to balance it out with 5 positive comments for the health of a relationship. And by 5 positive comments or positive experiences, I don't mean to say that they have to be big things. They could be simple micro moments of joy, maybe a smile, a hug, or just a positive comment. So the question is, how do we bring more positive emotions during the time when we are all stressed and we all struggle with negativity bias? Next, please. Anne touched upon this beautifully. This is the time when, as parents, it's not only important to make our children feel physically safe, but also emotionally safe. And that is by bonding with them and forming connections with them. By forming those bonding and connections with them, we are giving them happy memories. So that when all of this is over and when our kids would start going back to school, they will have these happy memories that will give them that energy that will be needed to handle the risks that school life is going to bring to them. So try to enter your children's world. Talk to them. What are they thinking or feeling? Say, for instance, your child has shown you a drawing and the drawing has a house on it. Start a conversation. Jim, there's the house. Who lives in that house? How are the characters feeling? Share your stories. So research has shown that resilient family members share their stories with each other. And those stories are not only of success, but they're of hardship as well as failures. This way you prepare your children, we prepare our children how to have a realistic taste of life, which is going to bring challenges as well as some success points. Try to model use of emotions and feelings in our everyday language. When we as parents use emotions like, oh, I'm feeling tired, overwhelmed, excited, nervous, we actually equip our children's world and we give them permission to use those emotions in their language. And hence, our conversation with them deepens and gets more rich. Another way to have more positive emotions is praise our children. And it's important that when we praise our children, we don't praise the outcome, or we don't praise them, hey, Johnny, you're so smart. You're so good at it. It's important that we praise the process of it. Johnny, I love how you've paid attention to the details, or how you've persisted despite the challenges with this math problem. Play with them. Play leads to micro moments of joy, and it's a natural way to develop some of those socio-emotional skills. Just pick up a ball and play, and then see the magic of play. Read with them. That's a natural opportunity for them to develop an interest in reading, as well as embed some of the ideas that you want to develop in them. Next, please. Anne talked a bit about it, that at this point, our children's world has been turned upside down. Their school has been taken away from them. They were looking forward to the summer camps, and many of them have been canceled. So through the dialogue, we can try to bring the attention of our children to some of the things that are beyond their control. Because when we focus on things that are beyond our control, our anxiety can really become dysfunctional. So while we don't have control over what the school reopening is going to look like, how long this corona is going to last, we may not have control over how others are going to behave or feel. We may go out for a walk and some people may not be wearing a mask or may come too close to us. We don't have control on what comes to the news. We have control over a number of things, such as we can choose what we are going to eat, what is our bedtime like, taking care of our sleep, who do I spend my time with, and what's the quality of it, and how do I spend my time with. During the summer, instead of feeling disappointed that there are no summer camps, we can come up with creative ways of learning new skills, maybe learning to bike, maybe taking an origami or arts class. So if you could, as parents and with our children, if we could fine tune our attention to the things that we can control. Next, please. One of the most effective way, actually, to bring a sense of control while our children's life is so uncertain is to bring some routines in their life. And this schedule really went viral. And your family can make your own schedule that suits everyone else's needs. So if you look at this schedule, in the middle, there are some broad categories that the family members could come up with, that how they want to spend their summer. And in the last section, there are some options there. So children can decide how they want to spend their creative time. Do they want to focus on arts projects or play with slime? Guess which one is on my family's schedule in the chores list. My two boys every day are responsible for emptying the dishwasher and putting the plates in the dishwasher. That's amazing for my well-being. So this schedule, this routine visual reminder gives them a sense of control as well as sense of choice. And you can tweak it on a daily basis depending on the needs of your family members. Next, please. Another important way that we can learn to manage as parents, as well as the thinking style of our children, is by managing the explanatory style. And Dr. Seligman has actually done a lot of research on explanatory style. And what he has shown is that it's not about the challenge. While we may not have a lot of control of what's the nature of the challenge going to be that's going to hit us, we may have some sense of control over how are we going to define that challenge? How are we going to make sense of it? And by that, I mean beliefs. And how we make sense of that challenge can really impact how we feel. So to give you an example, one of the challenges that many parents, including me, have felt really is managing our work as well as our home life and helping our children with their school. And that can be overwhelming. So in speaking with some of the parents, I noticed that many parents who are feeling overwhelmed, when I spoke with them deeper, some of the beliefs of the parents was, I can't manage working from home, cannot do anything. So the way they were explaining this challenge had lacked hope. So I wonder, how can we make this belief a bit more optimistic? Heather, do you have any ideas?
Well, I think one of the ideas might be to not have such high expectations, to recognize that you're working at home in a pandemic. It's not that you're just working at home, but you're working in home in a very difficult time, which then might lead you to think that you could have change your expectations for yourself and for your children, and try to focus on the other ways that they learn as well, not just traditional ways of learning, but all the other things that they might be learning by being at home and spending more time with you.
Exactly, Heather. So we can change our perspective of the challenge and change the narrative, and hopefully that might bring our feelings more, make our feelings more realistic and helpful. Next, please. One of the golden way actually of bringing more positive emotions in our life is use of character strengths, which are qualities that we exhibit through our behavior, thinking, and feelings that really impacts our own well-being as well as our children's well-being and all the people who are close to us. Next, please. So if you could please be ready with a pen or pencil and a page to write on, as we'll do a brief activity. Next, please. If you could please sit in a comfortable position, and as you continue to breathe, think about a time when you handled a challenge or problem regarding your child adaptively. Perhaps what comes to your mind is a small event that brought forth your resilience, bravery, and persistence. I'm going to show you images of 24 strengths. As you see these images, please pick the 5 strengths that strike your heart. Yes, I use them often, or I use that during that difficult time with my child. And please note it down. Next. 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 Thank you, Letta. So if you got a chance to note down some of your strengths, I will encourage you to reflect, give some time, a minute or so now, around these questions, and you can continue this reflection later on as we are struggling with limited time here. So some of the questions could be, how do these strengths reflect different aspects of your resilience as a parent? Reflect on how can you use those strengths during the current time of uncertainty as a parent. Because these are the strengths that are going to help you during this difficult time and anchor you. Consider sharing this story with your child later and encourage them to think about their strengths. You can continue this reflection later on. Next letter. A very important aspect of our well-being and the well-being of people close to us is strength spotting. That is, we pick the strengths as exhibited by our children in the real time, name that strength and appreciate them for those at that time. That really builds their confidence. Just like Anne in the beginning of this presentation appreciated all of us, and she named a strength of bravery. And that kind of made me feel a bit better that someone is naming our strength here. One of the strengths of my youngest child is bravery. And I mentioned it to him, Zed, I really appreciate how you crack me up with your sense of humor during the times when I'm feeling stressed. Or someone can be appreciated for their strength of kindness. Wow, I'm amazed by your kindness. You're making chocolate chip cookies for your friends. Or the teacher could say to the student, Johnny, your persistence really is amazing. You've stuck with this math problem despite the fact that it's so complex. Last but not the least, one of my suggestions to some of the families who come from racialized backgrounds, as we know that some families might be under that added stress given some of the challenges in that area, some of the sad incidents that have happened, is parents can spot strengths in the children who come from racialized background and share stories of people who struggled with the racism and did not give up. Next, please. So think of Malala Yousafzai, who was shot in her head for going to school. At the end of this traumatic incident, she could have said, I can't talk, I can't go to school, I'm scared. Instead, she used this traumatic incident and used the energy of it like an eagle and actually became louder in her voice and used her strength of bravery and social justice. And no wonder she ended up winning the Nobel Peace Prize. And she's a success today and she's graduating from the university. And she couldn't have done it without the help of her father. In summary, our resilience as parents matter. If we are resilient, we will be excellent role models for our children because our children do what we do, not what we talk. So we can try to walk the talk. Next, please. And finally, some reminders. Take a deep breath during stressful times, especially. Take this time as an opportunity to bond and really connect with your children and people who are dear to you. Remember our strengths and strengths of our children and spot those strengths and use them more and more. In this uncertain time, keep our focus on what is it that I can control and what is it that is beyond our control, and then choose a specific action from what we can control and focus our energies on that. When the challenge hits us, we have a choice. We can explain that challenge as an optimist or a pessimist. And last but not the least, ask ourselves, am I acting like the parent I want to be? Thank you for your loving presence here, and I will be happy to answer your questions at the end of the evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Afros. Appreciate that. And take 5. We're going to take a few minutes and we're going to play some music. I just want to thank Afros again to help us reflect on at such a trying time how important it is to be in touch with our resilience and what can we do to enhance that for ourselves and for our children. Lots of food for thought there. So we are going to put on a little bit of music just so you can get up and stretch your legs, get another cup of tea, whatever it is you need to do, so that we can focus for our last little bit. So if people just want to take a break, I think Latha is going to put some music on for us, something that'll brighten up things. And we'll be back when the music goes off, then we'll come right back on again.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Probably warn you, I'll be just fine. Yeah. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Hey, bring me down, can't
Welcome back, everybody. Hope that gave everyone a minute or two to stretch their legs and take a little break. I think sometimes we forget sitting so long is not so great. So I'm going to keep us moving along just in interest of time. And I'm very excited. Our third speaker and our final speaker is Karen Thornton. And Karen is a social worker and a clinician who works through an anti-oppression framework. She's worked for the past 15 years with individuals from many races, religions, and cultural groups. Her work is really based on inclusion. And Karen will help us to better understand what mental health is and how important it is as parents that we try to create a sense of stability and identity in our children, and how that will help us deal with all the challenges that we're faced with in our world right now. So I'm going to pass it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us, Karen.
Thank you so much, Heather, for introducing me. And I just want to kind of set the precedent for what's going to be talked about today, because when we start talking about mental health, we have to talk about mental health in the context of some difficult things, trauma, race, inequality, oppression, marginalization. So I just wanted to, before we start talking, I just want to go back to Anne's, you know, when she kind of sent it out there that it takes a village to raise a child. I want us to be very aware that, you know, having these conversations, we want to make sure that we know that it does take a village to raise a child. And when we're talking about difficult conversations like these, it's important to know that you're not alone. I'll also like to point out what Afro said when it says to be kind to ourselves. Throughout this presentation, I want us to take an opportunity, take a moment to listen to our bodies. I'll be talking a lot about bodies, Black bodies, white bodies, red bodies, and brown bodies. So when you hear these terminologies, and depending on how they trigger you, and we'll talk about that in this presentation, I want you to tap into what you're feeling, and you'll have an opportunity at the end to talk about these things openly and have a discussion as how to kind of navigate these conversations with your children, with yourself, and with your community. So please sit back and relax, and let's take an opportunity to talk about some pressing issues, and have an open discussion at the end around how these issues are affecting us at these challenging times. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to be a part of such an important forum. My aim is to further your knowledge and understanding around race, racism, and mental health in these unprecedented times. It seems like a sense of agency is being challenged. When I talk about agency, I'm technically talking about feeling of being in charge of your life. Around this time, we feel like we don't have a grasp, right, of what's going on within the world today. Knowledge, knowing where we stand, and knowing that you have a say in what happens to you in the world. Though there's been so much that's been changing rapidly in the last few months. Knowing that you have some ability to shape your circumstances. And for many racialized and marginalized groups, agency seems to have been eluding them, not just today, but for generations. But with COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter, there has been a resurgence around, you know, talking about, you know, oppression of racialized bodies and marginalized communities, which makes a lot of people wonder if equality is possible at all under the current umbrella of the dominant culture. And as a collective, understanding our mental health as it associates to race, racism, and oppression has become more important than ever before. So what I like to do is I like us to look at this slide, and this is going to be the way I'm going to kind of outline talking about different aspects today. The first thing I'm going to talk about is what is mental health. How does race, racism, and race-based affect mental health? What is whiteness and racialized bodies and how it's impacted in the world today? Common mental health concerns that are presenting themselves due to COVID-19, the protests around the world with difficulties that we face each and every single day. What impacts on mental health and what can we do to cope or to minimize the impact of racism on our mental health? I'll start off by talking about what is mental health. It seems to be a quick buzzword these days. Take care of your mental health, take care of your mental health. But a lot of us don't really understand what is mental health. So what I'm going to talk about is we cannot talk about mental health without mentioning two important variables: genetics and early experiences. When we talk about genetics, we have to talk about who we are born into. Who are we born into? Are we born into Black communities, brown communities, indigenous communities, white communities? Are these descendants? How do we take up the world? And how is that world basically, how is that world affected by how we take it up? And what we talk about is it has a lot to do with our gene. Our gene contains instructions that tell our bodies how to work. The chemical composition of the environment that's passed down from generation to generation can authorize or prevent instructions from being carried out. So based on how our gene has been changed or altered or manifest itself year after year, generation to generation, we may all take up the world differently because of our descent, where we came from. Now that does not mean that we are destined, to respond a certain way because of our gene. It does not mean that, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. What it does mean, though, is that more racialized bodies respond differently to stress and trauma and different circumstances and authority than non-racialized bodies. And it's important to know that because of that, the way in which we take up the situation in the world today is very different by everyone who come from different places in the world. Now, the other thing I want to touch on is early experiences. Early experiences shape the architecture of the developing brain. When we are developing, as we are exposed to certain environments, be it an environment that's rich with poverty, an environment that's rich with overstimulation, an environment that's rich with love, an environment that's rich with certain injustices, what happens is the brain starts taking up that information and it starts kind of doing, either it shuts down or it starts to kind of, shift and get wired in a different way, manifesting itself and showing up itself later with mental health issues or mental health concern or learning difficulties. Now, when I was researching this for this talk, I came across a really great research and a study that was done on rats. It's always the rats. I always say it's always the rats when we do research. And the research basically was the exposure of rats to cherry blossom. And what they did with the rats was every morning they would expose the rats to cherry blossom scents. So they wanted to determine whether or not the rats would, rats that were born from these pups that were born from these rats would experience these difficulties, or they'll experience some type of sensation if they had no exposure to these scents. And what they realized was, even though they took those pups and they moved them to adults that were never exposed to cherry blossom scents, the pups that were born to these rats that were exposed would respond in a different way when they smell cherry blossom scents. And what they recognize is that over generations of these pups that gave birth to other pups still had a different way of absorbing the information when they were exposed to cherry blossom scents. So what I want to say there is basically our gene and our environment is a significant reaction, a significant play on how we take up the world that we live in today. Next slide, please. Mental health is a state of being that affects how we think, feel, and act. Mental health includes our emotional or psychological and social well-being. It's how we handle stress. It's how we relate to others. It's how we make choices. So when we're working in these uncertain times, it's really important to look at how have I dealt with stress in the past? How have my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, my family members, my ancestors dealt with stress in the past? Because it might also be that you're not aware that you might be dealing with stress in the same way based on the fact that you have a predisposition to dealing with stress in a certain way. Now, when groups or communities have experienced discrimination and oppression for a generation, the body responds differently to stress. Stress can become toxic stress that manifests itself into racialized trauma. Now, you might ask me, what is racialized trauma? It's a form of race-based stress inflicted towards persons of colors and indigenous people by the dominant group in Western culture. Racism can show up even when it's unintentional by white bodies because of their lived experiences, because it's very different compared to Black bodies, brown bodies, indigenous bodies, which subsequently can lead racialized bodies to increase mental challenges because of the way in which they're taking in the information. With Black Lives Matter and the protests that's taking place and being quarantined with your children and feeling this sense of displacement, it's very important to understand that it's not just because you don't know how to deal with stress or you don't know what to say to your kids about what's going on. It has a long history in the world. And since the beginning of colonial travels in Europe and the Americas and the Caribbean, the world has been racialized. It has been seen as property to be owned, labored to white settlers, explored or discovered, where whiteness has been viewed as good, clean, pure, and desired. When whiteness is marketed as the ideal and anything different less than, the impact it has on racialized bodies is that of unwanted, dark, dirty, violent, and undesirable. When whiteness has been given the dominance over racialized or marginalized bodies, these continue to be, next slide please, these continue to be the enslavement of racialized bodies, especially around police brutality, incarceration, and poverty. Next slide, please. There's been lots of studies conducted by the World Health Organization and literature written by prominent figures in mental health, but that report that they've seen an increase in depression, they've seen an increase in PTSD, they've seen an increase in learning disabilities and among racialized or marginalized communities. What we are witnessing today in the media around Black Lives Matter is not just about George Floyd. It's about the emotional, psychological, and social well-being of people, especially Black people, by the hands of the dominant group. Next slide, please. Even though it's conscious or unconscious, it's important for us to educate ourselves around the issues that's faced by marginalized and racialized groups. Now, people ask me, well, how do I become a part of the solution? How do I deal with, talking to my children in this difficult time about COVID, about Black Lives Matter, about, race injustice? How do I do this? Because everything impacts our mental health. Generational trauma that's hidden inside of our genes of racialized people that face racism, discrimination, and oppression daily. I want to, reiterate at this time that the interaction of gene and the experiences affect our mental health. So how can we actually set up the solution? How could we set up certain, coping strategies, let's call it, so we could minimize the impact on our bodies, on the bodies of racialized individuals. Next slide, please. I always say to my clients that I work with is we need to find a sense of identity, owning who we are as individuals. What I mean by that is feeling of being in charge of your life and knowing that you stand for issues and knowing that you have a say in how your life unfolds. It's knowing that you have the ability to shape your life, and you have ability as parents to talk into your children more than anyone else. Because as parents, you know the history, you know the areas where your children struggle, where the family has struggled, where your community has struggled. So I always tell my clients to tap into your sense of identity, who you relate with, and how you kind of find your voice in that relationship. It brings a significant sense of empowerment. I also talk to clients around self-awareness. Self-awareness is the greatest thing. I could sit here, I could talk about education, get education, get an understanding of what's going on in the world and how things unfold in history. But I always say to my clients, it's about making sure that you have a greater sense of awareness, because the more you have a sense of it, there's more potential to control how you live your life. If you know what you feel is the first step to knowing why you feel that way. Practice good self-care. Take time out for yourself. Take a walk, knowing when to take a walk with your kids and just talk to them about history and talk to them about your journey. Talk to them about the areas where times when things are difficult, because by you talking to them, you will help them to understand and to embrace the beauty behind their own culture and their sense of who they are. And we must also need to listen. Sometimes as parents, as individuals, we spend a lot of times talking. And I just told you to talk, so I don't want to contradict myself. It's important to talk, but it's very important to listen. Listen to what's going on around you. Listen to what your children are saying. Listen to what your children are feeling. Listen to what your children are bringing to you. And instead of trying to figure it out on your own, one of the things I always say is turn to the system. The systems meaning turn to the family, turn to your community, turn to your educators, turn to your ministers, your ministries that actually you can relate to. The systems are very important because it does help. It takes the village to raise a child. It does help to get people involved. One of the things that I want us to know is understanding how your body responds to stress and not putting so much pressure on yourself to have all the answers, because some of the answers is not based on what's going on in the current moment. It's based on what's been going on for centuries and what's been going on over generation and over a period of time. And it's really important to recognize that you have to give yourself some reprieve, that if you don't know how to respond or to support your child or to support yourself around this very difficult time, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out to the community and say, I need to feel a sense of support. Asking for help is very important. Now, next slide, please. In summary, I want to share with you that mental health is universal, but it's different. It's different for every individual based on their station in life, based on the hue of their skin, not because it is a separation. It's because this is just the way life had worked out. And it's important for them not to be ashamed of the hue of their skin. It's about learning how to celebrate it and learning how to talk about it without feeling guilty for being born a certain color or being from a certain background. Our genes and experience play a very important role in how we handle stress, especially when it comes to toxic stress. How racialized and marginalized bodies are more prone to mental health because of the lack of accessibility when it comes to, being able to afford to see a therapist like myself, or to ask, or the culture in which you were brought up in may not be as open to mental health, because then it reinforces all the stereotypes that they have felt from previous generations. I also want to say it's very important to integrate the systems. They're very important because it helps to change things for the future. Talking to parents, talking to community, and talking to those who are, who are there to offer support is very important to minimize the impact on one's mental health. The other last thing I want to mention is we are all facing difficulties at this time, and we are all looking for answers. And one of the things that I've learned over the years from Brené Brown is to learn how to lean into our own vulnerabilities, lean into the discomfort, and ask for support. It really helps us to grow and to find a way to support each other in these very difficult times. Thank you. Next slide.
Thank you so much, Karen. That's a lot of information for us to all percolate with tonight. And there's a number of questions that have come up in the chat box. And I'm very aware of the amount of time we have. So I've tried to look at them thematically so we can address some of them. I also want to remind people that in the chat box, we've posted a link to the website at the TDSB that offers resources around mental health and well-being, both within the TDSB and also in our community. A reminder that there's something called What's Up walk-in clinics, which are available on the phone or by video that anyone can access. Similar to go to a medical clinic, it's just for mental health. So I just wanted to point that out to start off with. A couple of the themes, and there were a lot of very particular situations, but I want to, because we have a short time, thematically, one of them was a few people were concerned about their children, their willingness to go outside. I think because of COVID, they're concerned about trying to get their children to go outside and their reluctance to do that. And so I didn't know if someone wanted to respond to that, about as a parent, how you might do that. I don't know who wants to respond to that. Anne, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. I think probably it would only be fair to acknowledge that every situation is going to be very different for every family, and what their geographical situation is, what their living circumstance, and so on. So I think that it's about figuring out what's realistic for your family right now and what your child needs at a particular age and stage. And I sense that a lot of parents and kids are feeling sort of deeply discouraged and exhausted at this point. So I think maybe some of the reluctance to go outside is a combination of anxiety about, you know, the germs out there, and also just exhaustion where, you know, we spent all those months sort of, you know, trapped in our own homes, and now it seems stranger to be outside than in. So I would say gentle baby steps. That's the only way I can ever get through things in my life when I'm challenging myself. So maybe trying to get the child involved in problem solving and thinking about what would actually be so much fun that it's almost irresistible. Because I think we keep forgetting about fun, and we need it, don't we? So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, we certainly do need to look at how we can create more fun, and also, as you said, I think uniquely work with each child around what their concerns are and how to get them out. I know my little neighbor who's 6 yells at me that I need to stay 6 feet away from her. And I think it's great that she's very aware of what that means. So part of that is creating a community to support that in whatever way that is. And I think as we change what's going on in society, then those things will also change as we move into different phases. So the other question which came up a couple of times was around siblings conflict. And I've actually been reading a lot about that right now, because we are all in our houses or our apartments, our homes, and sibling conflict, it seems to be an issue that parents are dealing with. Does anyone want to respond to that one?
So Heather, I'll take a stab at it. Our children are experiencing big emotions right now, and their life is turned upside down. And it's possible that some of the conflicts that they are demonstrating with their siblings is a symptom of those unprocessed big emotions. So my recommendation to the parents and to myself as a parent is to continue to have that dialogue where there's a catharsis of those feelings. At the same time, depending on the age of the child, we can use this time as an opportunity actually to develop some conflict resolution skills and sharing the space. So maybe as parents, our job is to validate some of those feelings, name the emotion, say it out loud. Uh-oh, Jim and Jill, I hear you're feeling frustrated because there's only one TV right now, and we need to share the TV time. I wonder if you want to take a break from this and calm down, as Anne had talked about. And then if you could problem solve and talk about what do you think, how can we manage that situation? So this way we are giving them a chance, that conflicts are a part of growth. And it's about how do we reach some of those conflict resolution skills. And if they're not able to come up with the solutions, then maybe jump in and help them with that.
Okay, thank you. One more theme I was going to hit on, because it came up a couple of times, was the impact of children being on media and how parents are experiencing that, kind of changing how their child might normally behave in negative ways. And I don't know if any of you have any, Karen, do you have any experience, or you want to comment on that? Because that's definitely a phenomenon we're hearing a lot about. You're muted, Karen.
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to take a stab at that. Like Anne and Afroz was talking about, when it comes to a lot of, time together, spending time together and trying to, keep children busy, keep children occupied and keep them, entertained has become harder and harder. And social media and, information around the web and Instagram and all these other social media forums have become a way to turn for information. And what has happened is there's this reliance that has taken place where we are going so much more to the internet rather than the family. And it's creating a bombardment of so many more emotions that are coming up around questions for parents and being unable to answer those questions because of the amount of information that they're getting from the media. And one of the things that I do with my clients is I talk to them about having conversations about what's age appropriate, what's safe to talk about, and open up the dialogue in the family so that they can feel as though their voices are stronger and more impactful than the voices in social media, on the internet, and things like that.
Thank you. That's great. I also want to remind people that we, in a couple of days, we have another speaker, which is for our adolescents and teenagers. And one of the speakers is going to be talking about social media. So if this is an area that you want more information on, please join us again in the next conversation, because there would be some more specific details around that might be helpful. I also just want to kind of wrap up by saying that it's important to know that the TDSB has a lot of resources to support your family and your students at this point in time, and that if you are struggling, it would be really important to reach out to someone in your school to let them know that, teacher, an administrator. And so I think that they could also connect you. We have some support that will be offered this summer. So if your family is in need of that, or your child, part of it is recognizing that we're all under a great deal of stress right now. And I think that's impacting us in a lot of different ways, and some of them we don't always understand. So I think reaching out to get some help, I think Karen also really brought that home at the end, how important that is. So in the chat box, again, it's under actually remote learning and mental health and well-being on the TDSB website. You will find those resources, and you can email us if anyone wants any further follow-up on that. So I think that we've run out of time, a little bit more than run out of time, but I want to thank everyone. Thank to the speakers, to Karen and Afros and Anne, for your wonderful conversations tonight, which will really, I think, give us some food for thought as we continue to move in our journey at this time. And, if people have any further questions, please reach out to the PIAC office, and we can also connect you in our school communities. I see there's a lot more questions in the box, but I think I don't have time to get them. But I think, one of the other messages I wanted to give was how important it is to be kind to yourself and have self-compassion as a parent. We're all learning to do this in a way that we never thought we would. One of the silver linings that I have been trying to focus on is just my sense of community that I never would have experienced if it wasn't for COVID. And even though I'm 6 feet away, that little girl, Megan, who lives next door to me, talks to me a lot more than she would before, just because I'm out. And so do all the other people on my street. So I think to look for those silver linings is really important, and to reach out for help, whether it's to someone next door to you or someone in our school system. We're here to really help support you at this very difficult and challenging time. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and hopefully you can join in I don't actually have the dates in front of me. Someone's suggesting I say the dates. Can someone post the dates or put them in the chat box, Margaret, so I can I say that when is the next speak?
Please feel free to join us on Wednesday, June the 24th for our conversation on mental health, well-being, and early years with adolescents and teens. Wednesday, the 24th, please visit www.tdsb.on.ca and the schedule and links will be available to you there.
Thank you. And then the one following that, Michelle?
That session will be on Friday, June the 26th, starting again at 6, and we will be talking race with families. We look forward to families continuing the conversation with us there. You may also, again, visit www.tdsb.on.ca and the links and the video link and the call-in will be available there.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And have a great evening. The rest of the evening, and a safe and an interesting summer. Try to use our creativity in a summer like we'll never have experienced probably again.
Absolutely.
So take good care, everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you
for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.